Hi, we're going to take a brief tour today of the photographer's Ephemeris running on iPad. TPE for short is an app intended for outdoor photographers, maybe landscape or wildlife, any outdoor photographer who's looking to use the light of the sun or the moon in their photographs and would like to plan that light in advance of their shoot. Let's take a little look around the screen. Here we're in landscape mode and you'll see center screen a map. On the right, a whole bunch of information that we'll talk about in a while, and some controls on a toolbar across the top. The basics of navigation, first of all. Using the map, some of the gestures you can use on the iPad. Double tap to zoom in. You can use the pinch gesture to zoom in or out, like so. And you can just tap hold to pan around the map. You'll see here as I'm zooming in, we have a pin and a number of lines on the map, and the app defaults to the middle of nowhere in Timbuktu, and that's probably not where you're likely to be going to shoot. It may be, but probably not. So one of the things we want to do is to find our initial location. To do that, one of the easiest ways is just to search for it by place name. So let's go over to the North American Rocky Mountains in Colorado. I'm going to search for a town called Estes Park, which lies just outside of Rocky Mountain National Park, one of the most popular national parks in the US. What I might do now is come over here to Settings and change over the map display to Hybrid so that I can get a better sense of the landscape. What I'm now going to do is zoom out, let's try that again, zoom out just a little, and then we're going to move into the park. I know my way around there, so I know roughly where I'm looking for, and we're heading up towards some of the lakes inside the park. Here we go, and that road just there ends at a lake called Bear Lake, and up here is Dream Lake, which is quite an attractive alpine lake, good for photography. So that's our spot that we want. Now, to get some information that we really care about, we want to use that pin that's been lurking around the screen and make sure it gets to where we want it to be. So let's use the button here to drop the pin in the center of the screen. So there it goes. What is that? The red pin is called the primary pin or the primary map marker, and from it there are a number of lines drawn, and those are the lines that represent the direction of sunrise, sunset, moonrise and moonset. So yellow orange for the sun, blues for the moon. Now that pin's not exactly where we want it, because really what we'd like is to have it probably up on the mountains here, because that's the prime subject of the photograph that we'd like to take from the shores of Dream Lake over here. What I can do to move the pin, I tap it once to select it, the little crosshairs appear. I can then pick it up, drag it and drop it over here on the top of Hallett Peak, which is one of the very characteristic mountains of the area. Once I've done that, you can see exactly where the sunlight strikes at sunrise. This is definitely a morning shot. We have lower ground all the way to the east on the plains of eastern Colorado, the Continental Divide and the high Rockies here in the center. So the morning light is coming generally from the east, but that varies by time of year, and you can get a sense of that from the direction of the line. Some of the other information on the map here, let's just look at the top. We've got the current date that's selected, Saturday, January 22nd, 2011. We're 7 hours before GMT in the America-Denver time zone. The pin is at an altitude of 3,500 meters above sea level. Now, seeing as we're in North America, why don't we switch that over to use imperial measures. We just flick that switch to on. There we go. Roughly 11,500 feet. So we're not quite at the top of the mountain, which I think is in excess of 12,000. And then finally the coordinates, 40 degrees north, 105.5 degrees west, roughly speaking. So that covers the lines, what they're telling you, the data on the map. Let's have a look over here at this calendar style view. And you see in the center the highlighted date there of January 22nd. And this morning the sun would have risen at 7:21 in the morning, at a bearing from true north of 115.6 degrees. It's going to set shortly after 5 o'clock at 244 degrees. That's that darker orange line. And then you see the moon's coming up. It's just after a full moon, 93.8% full, waning. And that is rising 9 o'clock in the evening and sets in the morning. So you'll see that that's straddling the midnight hour. You might also want to know about times of twilight. You can do that. Just tap the date control and it flips over, shows you the start of civil, nautical and astronomical twilight when it starts in the morning and when it finishes at night. And those twilight times really indicate how far below the horizon the sun is at that time. So civil is from 0 to 6 degrees below the horizon, nautical 6 to 12, astronomical 12 to 18. And they all have different qualities of light, which you can read about elsewhere on the internet and on the site. Let's flip that back. Some of the other things we might want to do, and this is probably the main use of this type of data, is to work out what time of year is a good time of year for this particular shot. And what you can see here, if we're shooting in the morning, the light is coming across the mountains, and you can see these deep ridgelines here. With the rising sun striking at that angle, there will be parts of this in deep shadow, and only parts of the upper ridge here, this is Flat Top Mountain, you see the trail indicated up there, that will catch the light. The rest of it, there'll be a lot of deep shadow here. So probably what we're looking for is a time of year when the sun is rising more along the axis of the valley here. So one of the things we can do, we can swipe forward week by week, and you can see that the sun is slowly moving to the north as we're moving into the northern hemisphere spring. Probably need to go a few weeks yet, so let's see if we can just guess a better date. Use the calendar at the top here. Let's flip that into March. What about shortly after late March, maybe the 25th or thereabouts? And you can begin to see that now this is looking a little bit better. Let's drag that pin over there. You see the light is definitely going to light up here. We'll probably have some shadow still down here because the light's still going to strike at that angle. Let's pick that pin up, move it back there. Yeah, there we go. So shadow here. So we may want to go actually maybe a week or two later. So we can flip week at a time. Let's go one more week. So early April. Now things are looking fairly promising. Might be nice not to go too late into spring, so we make sure there's some good snow left up on the peaks, make the picture look more attractive. What you might want to do is to go day by day. So what happens on the 9th? You can just tap an individual date and that will become selected. If I double tap that one, it'll scroll to the center of the screen so you can check out what's happening either side of it. And maybe we just want to go a little bit further. Saturday the 16th of April. That's looking fairly promising. We're going to get the light coming straight up the lake here, up the valley. We can be based down here. You may be wondering, why don't we put the pin down at the base of the lake? You can do that, but that's telling you when the sun rises at that position, and the primary subject of the photograph is these mountain peaks. This is probably going to be foreground for sure, but you may not care quite so much exactly when the light hits there. It's more about when it hits up here. So that's why we tend to put the pin on top of what we're shooting. So the final thing we'd like to do for this first demo is to save this location. That's a good place. Up on the toolbar here you can click that pin icon and we can add a location. So we'll click add, and by default it's asking us for a name of the place that we are. It's looked up the closest address it can find, Flat Top Mountain Trail. It's not a bad guess. It's got the coordinates. You can edit those if you want to, but it's where the pin currently is, so we're happy with those. And we'll call that Hallett Peak. Hit return, click save. There it goes, and we're done. So that's the basics. We've covered the layout of the screen, how to change a date, how to search for a place, how to save a location, how to move the pin around the screen. That covers all the basics of how to use TPE on the iPad. Next time we'll look at some of the more advanced functionality on the details view and how the information the app shows in portrait mode. Until then, thanks a lot.